We're almost done with the initial setup for our sliding block. So my next step is going to be to go into Kismet, and I'd like to store this scene that we've opened up for our block UI so that we can use it later when we get out of that UI scene, when we reset the camera. So I'm going to start off by jumping over to my global variables, and I'm going to create a new object variable. And we'll set the var name to block scene. And we'll fit that in like so. Now, back over here, I'm going to create a new named variable. And we'll set the find var name to block scene. And connect this to the open scene output of the open scene action. So what happens is we take our UI block move, and then that gets stored into this variable for use later. Okay, now the last thing we're going to do is set up some initial conditions for this block. So back over here in our global variables, let me expand this a little bit. We're going to create some booleans. So new variable, boolean, and we're going to set the variable name to b can move up. And let me copy this off a couple times. So there's a total of 4 copies. And we'll take the second one, and I'll change the name to can move down. And then can move left. And can move right. Now, what these are some, as I mentioned earlier, initial conditions that allow us to control in which direction our block can move. Now, in our example, it only makes sense that if our camera is oriented like this, that our block can only move down. We don't want it to move up because it would block the player, and we don't want it to move left or right because it would have to go through a wall and it could end up hitting the player anyway. So let's go back over here to Kismet. And we're going to create some named variables for those globals that I just set up. So named variable, find var name, b can move up, and we'll copy that off. And we'll set the second one to down, and the third one to left, and the fourth one to right. Okay, now we need to set up some set variables so that we can actually store these values. Because what these are just kind of blank placeholders. What we're going to do is set up a series of set Boolean variable actions that are going to actually plug values into these. So let's create a new action, set variable, Boolean, and I'll just go ahead and make 4 of these total. So copy, paste, paste, paste. Now, into each one, just plug in the nearest named variable. Then we're going to just string all of these together and plug them into the touch of the dynamic trigger volume touch. Now we have to give them all their initial value. So let's right-click, create a new Boolean variable. Go ahead and do this for all 4 of these. And in our case, since we can only move down, I'm going to take the one connected to B can move down and set that to true. And the idea here is that you would set this to true for any direction that you wanted your block to be able to move. Now, if you wanted to make multiple blocks, in the end, you would need to make multiple copies of this network, each with its own trigger volume touch, as well as making sure you associate the proper interp actor and the appropriate camera as well. So that is the basic setup for our movable block. So I want you to go ahead, close out of Kismet, save your level, and then we'll continue.